find a way.
Gavin, man, I want to go back to probably the best week of your life, which is Major League Baseball draft week, the day you've probably been dreaming of since you were a little kid. Take me back. Take me back to that moment in time.
Yeah, it was definitely crazy between, talking to the actual day of the draft. Did it at the Niswonger farm and vineyard. So we were at the Virginia, and I had probably 20 of my closest, VT friends, baseball friends, Tennessee High friend, basically everyone that's helped me sort of get to this point, my age, if not that we wanted to play golf that morning. So we had, 25 people play golf that morning. I think we teed off at like 10 or something. Which is, what I love to do in the off season, play golf. So we got everybody together, had a good time, finished up around probably 2. And then from 2 to 6, I probably had 15 phone calls with my agent, 10 calls with various GMs and teams, sort of like, hey, like, we like you, or hey, like, you're not coming to us type deal. And then as far as talking with my agent, that was more on the side of his thoughts on where it was all sort of happening, but you never know sort of what's going to go on. So
at that point, you didn't have an idea of where you're going to land.
I always thought, like, I really did always think it was going to be with the Royals at 9. I thought that until about like the second pick of the draft, because it's just so weird. Like in the NFL and stuff, like whatever they're, wherever they sign, that's the money they get. Where in baseball, you can go first overall and sign for $2 million, and you can go 30th overall and sign for $7 million. So it's all sort of a underslot, overslot type deal. But there was a couple teams that I knew I wasn't going to. Like I knew I wasn't going 7 to the Cubs. They told me they wanted to take a pitcher. Some other teams, like, you don't know where you're going. I knew the Royals liked me, and then Detroit and somebody, it was 12 and 13. I knew it was, I thought it was going to be 9, 10, 13, or 14, somewhere in that range. But you never really know. And then when the draft starts, it's like the longest in between picks. It's like, I think it's like 5 minutes, but it feels like 50.
I bet.
And, you got grandparents and cousins and people that have no idea how it works, and they're there, they think you're going every single pick, and like they're coming with the pick, and it's like it gets really quiet, but I know I'm not getting picked. I'm like, guys, just like relax, that's fine. But yeah, it was crazy. One of the wilder things I would say was where I was sort of like, when I realized like, oh, like this is crazy, it was after the 6th pick, because I went 9th. After the 6th pick, my agent calls me and he's like, hey, the Royals want to draft you at 9, but they are offering 4-5. But the slot was whatever, 5-2 and some change. And he was like, I told him no. And I was like, and he was like, I got to go. I'll talk to you in a minute. And he just hangs up the phone. And like, everybody's sort of looking at me like thinking I'm getting drafted, whatever, next, 7th or 8th. But I knew I wasn't going 7th. And like nobody else knows. There's 200 people back there that are all thinking I'm going next, but they don't know that I'm sitting there thinking, wow, like I just told someone that I don't want $4.5 million, And I'm just sitting there and like, I didn't tell my dad, I didn't tell anybody. Like I was just sitting there like, because then I'm thinking, and they're drafting different. Like the draft didn't, I think Kumar went 3rd. He was supposed to go later. So like the whole draft was sort of sliding just different. I mean, you never can guess it.
Because there's got to be a fear, like I could slide out of the first, like there's got to be that fear in your back of your mind.
I wasn't worried about sliding out of the first round necessarily, but I mean, you get like the difference between, the slot value at 9 and the slot value at 15 is almost probably $2 million.
Wow.
And he was, when he told me, I told him no, I was like, I mean, this is why you hire him, though. I mean, because if they call a 21-year-old kid, I'm going to be like, heck yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think one pick goes by. Right after the 7th pick, he called me, and said, hey, the Royals are going to give you the full slot. You're going 9th for 5.2 and change. So he made me over the initial offer, an extra 700,000 to the slot value. But it's just crazy how their world works. And then, obviously very emotional when you get drafted and, all the hard work sort of paid off. But I mean, it was crazy night. I think right after the first thing, hug my parents, whatever, then I got a call. The scouting director calls me, the GM calls me, Bobby Witt texts me, George Brett called me on the phone for like an hour. Wow. Like just crazy stuff. Like this is all going on before I could even say, hug and say thanks to everybody that's there. Like I'm on the phone. And then, I come back. It was literally probably an hour of phone calls and stuff. And I come back and, everybody's bought a drink. They're like, hey, there's drinks on your table. And there's 45 drinks. Like if I would have drank it all, I wouldn't have made it past a couple hours. Yeah. But no, it was really surreal. Definitely one of the coolest day in my life, I would say for sure. And just something that, you can't really live down. I mean, it was pretty fun.
So I know that you had conversations leading up to the draft. You had conversations with a lot of different organizations. So it's like an interview process, like this big investment for them, right? Is it like job interviews? Yeah,
I would say I met with 28 out of the 30 teams, and I did most of it. They have a draft combine type thing that they started doing, I guess, 4 or 5 years ago. And I flew out to San Diego. They send I don't know, maybe I would say probably the top 3 or 4 rounds. Like every guy that is projected to get drafted, goes out there, and all 30 teams fly in. You sit in the suites. We were at Petco Park, and you just basically have job interviews from 8 a.m. until 2. So each team has their own suite, and you go in there. The owner wasn't in all of them, but I would say the owner was in probably a fourth of my meetings. And then obviously the GM, assistant GM, all the scouting departments there. And I'll ask you sort of, what you see in yourself, how you play, how you want to play, sort of where your vision is for the next, 3 years or whatever it may be, but various interview questions, a lot of, family history, kind of how you grew up, and then just sort of open-ended questions for you to answer. And they sort of base their judgment off of that. What's
the strangest question you got?
I had a questionnaire that asked me if I kept peanut butter in the fridge or not. I said no.
What were they getting at?
I have no idea. I think it was the Guardians. So that wasn't an in-person question, but we had questionnaires through an app that we had to fill out. And the Guardians questionnaire, I remember, took literally 2.5 hours. This was all during my junior year of college that you're filling all these out on the computer. And I mean, anything you could possibly think of is on that thing.
In retrospect, going through all that, what do you think? What do you think they were trying to find? What was most important to these baseball clubs?
I mean, I think they're trying to find someone. They don't want cocky, but they want personalities in an organization. They want guys that, sort of stand apart in their own right, guys that people can sort of follow behind, not just your generic sort of, which that's what I notice most with the big time players is everyone, at least whenever, so when I'm in spring training now and I see our big league team, there's always guys that people are sort of pushing to follow through. And most of the time it's the best player. You're just going to watch what he does, sort of try to emulate what he does, how he goes about his day. But there's also guys that are there, might not be as talented, but because of how they work and sort of how they carry themselves and how they interact with, coaches and strength coaches and even people that are just working in the front office. It's the way that they interact compared to some other guys definitely keeps them in the game a little bit longer. So I think that was sort of some of the stuff in the questionnaires that I noticed was more they want leaders. It doesn't have to be vocal, but they want guys that can lead and not guys that are kind of just following along.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's about talent, but it's not just about talent.
Well, all the guys every guy that gets drafted or even signed free, everybody that plays is talented. You don't you're not going to show up and not be talented. Everybody has talent. Sure, there's some guys that have some more natural talent than other guys. That's any sport. But the separators are sort of, how you carry yourself off the field, how you work, and sort of how knowledgeable you are within the game. And talent can get you so far. I mean, there's some guys that, we're literally born and destined to just play the sport. But there's also other guys that have had a lot of talent, don't carry themselves the right way, and are out of the game in 2 or 3 years. So, it can only get you so far.
Do you see those differentiators even in the college game?
Yeah, I would say, once again, everyone that plays at a Division I level has some sort of talent. They do something good that the coaches recruited them to go there. Our coach in college always told us, like, we recruited you here for a reason. Like, you do something good. Like, you do something that we like that can help our team win. And it's just, the Royals' big thing is know thyself. So, like, know what kind of player you are, know what your strengths are. Obviously work on your weaknesses, but know what player you are. If you're not a power hitter, don't try to hit for power. If you're a bad defender, maybe try to work on it, but don't try to do or be something that you're not.
Wow.
Is sort of their big emphasis.
And that's the Royals.
That's like their main mantra. Like, know thyself. As far as the hitting side is, like, if you're not good at, hitting the inside pitch, like, work on it, but don't kill yourself. Just understand that, that's not your strength, and work on it in the off season. Don't try to do stuff during the season and overcomplicate the game, because it's a very hard game. So, trying to do stuff while you're playing isn't the best option. It's
really interesting because, in our franchise system, we try to figure out, like, the difference between high performers and low performers. And we've done personality assessments, and the stark difference between the high performers and low performers was self-awareness, which is know thyself.
Yeah.
Right? Like, be aware of your blind spots. And if you have self-awareness, you can be coached.
Yeah.
And if you don't have self-awareness, it's really hard to coach somebody, right?
Exactly.
So it's interesting to hear how that is the same in Major League sports.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think with anything in life, if you're not aware and don't know what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, you're kind of just, treading in you're just treading in the water. Like, you're not getting better, you're not getting worse if you don't understand sort of either what you're trying to get better at, or what you're trying to, what you realize you're not doing good at. Like, if you don't know what you're doing, if you don't know yourself, then you're not doing anything very beneficial.
Yeah. And you've played with plenty of guys, I'm sure, that had the talent but didn't have that self-awareness, that didn't make it. And
a lot of it, I think a lot of the self-awareness too, it's not all about just the profession. It's not all about, do I need to work on, hitting that away pitch or hitting the inside pitch. A lot of it is, off the field. Am I making the right decisions? It all goes back to making the right decisions, having a good foundation, and people to lean on, which I think, a lot of that has to do with how you're raised, the people that you put yourself around. It all sort of stems back to that, which I see a lot of guys that have good foundations, have a tight circle and people they can lean on, and it helps them when they're struggling through the season, where other guys, they might have had a rougher childhood, or they struggle to have that one or two people to lean on. And that's where, teammates come in, coaches come in, for people that they can bounce ideas off of and talk to whenever they're, not having a good month, week, whatever it may be. But you see the people that are more hard-minded, that sort of have a foundation, are able to sort of push through those things a little bit easier than the guys that try to do it all by themselves and aren't sure sort of what they're attacking.
How, when you think about draft day and people watch the draft and they think, man, this is the luckiest guy in the world, but it's got to be kind of tough too. Your life changes pretty quickly, right?
Yeah. When you're playing in college, it's definitely a more, team feel. You're still in college. It's obviously, it feels like a job in college.
Yeah.
But you still, you're still just playing, 3 games a week, 4 games a week. You get the entire summer off. You play summer ball, but that's more just, go out and play. Mm-hmm. You get, your 3 months off in the winter. You don't practice every day to a certain extent. And then you get to pro ball. It's like, I'm in college. I'm not better than everyone else, but I didn't have to. There was definitely, there was more tiers in college. There was like the really good player, the good player and then the guys that just sort of didn't work and were sort of just in that middle sort of medium range. And then you get to pro ball and there's a really high tier, it's very thin, and then everybody else. Like there's so like the tiers sort of, everyone sort of starts to come together as far as talent goes and ability, because they're drawing from, you know, all over the world. You got guys from, you know, Latin America, Japan, all over the place that are all sort of, which you don't really see that in college. College is more just the American player for the most part. And then in pro ball, you got the high school guys. So everyone sort of, the game gets a little more even. Then it's sort of, what are you doing to separate yourself from everybody else as far as just relying on your, you know, God-given ability.
Yeah. It's got to challenge your self-belief when you walk on the pro field for the first time.
Well, I mean, and hitting especially is all about, I mean, not all about, but a lot of it has to do with just confidence. Like even if you're struggling, you got to find, you know, something that makes you believe in yourself. Because if you're up there thinking, you know, I can't do this or I don't feel great, and then you're trying to think about this or that when you're swinging while, you know, 100 miles an hour is coming at you, like it's just not going to work.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of it comes back to self-belief and confidence, but it's hard when you play 150 games a year and, you know, you're going to struggle at some point. Like even the best players in the world struggle at some point, but they can bounce out of it quicker because they have that strong mind and strong will and people to lean on that understand, you know, like if I put the work in and work hard enough and focus hard enough, you know, I'll get through this and it won't be a big deal.
You know, I watched that's adversity, right? Like a slump is adversity, and it's going to happen at some point every season. Is that fair to say?
I mean, I would say multiple times a season.
And so it's facing adversity. And you know, I watched you grow up. I watched you and Corey grow up, and one of the more enjoyable things was watching how you guys learned how you handled adversity. And like when you were when you were 10, like you throw a tantrum. Yeah. Right. And then you get older and you learn how to handle it more. Yeah. How have you learned, what have you learned about yourself and how you get through those low points and that adversity?
Yeah. I mean, I think it all comes back to a solid foundation and people to lean on. I would say I keep my circle pretty tight as far as I'm not consumed on how many, you know, quote unquote friends I have, but the ones that I do, I want to be able to go with them with anything and not have anything to hold behind, anything to hide, sort of open up with, you know, hey, you know, I'm struggling, or I mean, I don't feel good. I don't like where I'm at, you know, and just talk about it. And if it takes a tough conversation, it takes a tough conversation. And as far as like tantrums and feeling sorry for yourself, like I think the more that you just experience those sort of hard times, you go to realize, you start to realize like, no matter how bad I feel about myself or how sorry I feel about myself, like it's not going to change. It's not going to help or change anything. Like you have to sort of just face it, own up to it and get through it. And I think, you know, college and even summer ball, like going off, you know, far places away where you're sort of on your own and just, it might not be fun or enjoyable at the time, but looking back, like so many benefits from doing stuff like that. Like I went to the Cape Cod my sophomore summer and by myself, living in a host family, playing 6 days a week. And I was struggling really bad. I think I was hitting under 100. Like I started like 0 for 18. I was supposed to be this, you know, first round draft pick, whatever, blah, blah, first team, all this stuff. And I'm struggling with guys that I quite frankly, I thought I was way better than, but they're outperforming me. I'm by myself. And, you know, I felt sorry for myself for the first week. Nothing happened. And then finally I was just like, all right, I'm just going to, you know, try to do something. So, you know, I called my dad, my hitting coach, and they flew up there. And I would say for probably 4 straight days, we went to the field at, you know, 9 a.m. and hit till 1, just trying to figure something out, video and everything, just working. And, you know, slowly it turned, you know, the next week started showing a little bit of results. And then I went to Team USA right after that and had the best, you know, the results started to show, which it's not all about instant results. I think everybody in the world now is such result oriented and can't see through the struggle. But that summer with Team USA, after, you know, battling through some stuff, was the best summer I've ever had playing baseball. And that's one of the key reasons that, you know, that draft day happened the way that it did.
Yeah. having that college experience had to have been valuable for that sort of thing. So, because you grow so much between 18 and 22, learning how to handle adversity and just off the field maturity and discipline. It's got to be hard for guys coming straight out of high school into the pros.
I think that's one thing, and I have a bunch of high school teammates with me now, and it's hard for them. Like whenever I see them struggle and them throw fits or feel sorry for themselves, it's hard for them because they went from, in high school, you're the best player in your area, probably in your state, probably in your region. Like you're the best. Like nobody's better than you. Probably
no crises of confidence in high school.
And then you go to college and you're not the best anymore. You might be, definitely as a freshman, you're not the best anymore. So the playing field evens out a little bit, and you learn how to compete. You learn how to struggle. You're playing against better competition while getting a good education and learning foundation of going to class and getting stuff done on your own away from home. But these high school guys, they go from being the best in their state, the best, they've never struggled. They're hitting 600. They can do whatever they want. And then they go to pro ball, so they just skip the whole living on your own, learning how to do their own laundry, just different stuff like that, to where they've never, they went from living at home, being the best that they could be, and then getting whatever X amount of dollars to go play pro ball. And now they're 18 and 19 years old in the spring training complex, like trying to figure out, how to live life, how to do all this stuff on their own. So I try to help the high school kids because it's hard. Like I almost think that they should require you to go to college just because it's so beneficial. I think I guess I could have figured it out and tried to do it coming out of high school, but I wasn't ready. The stuff I learned from my freshman year till junior year at Virginia Tech, as far as the coaches, just being, on time for everything, the workout, the 6 a.m. workouts, just responsibility, what I should do the night before, like how to prepare, get a good night's sleep to get to that 6 a.m. lift. Like these high school kids, they don't know how to do any of that. So they're sort of learning on the fly. And I think that's why you see the game trending a little more to the college player. Like the last 3 drafts has been a little more college players drafted. There's certain high school kids though that, they can't turn down the money. Like, they get $7 million. Like you can't say no to that. Right. And so it's hard for them because you have to say yes to that. But there's a certain range to where, especially now with NIL, to where what's the dollar amount that you're not going to go to college? Like LSU, I don't know the kid's name, but I think it might have been a transfer portal kid, but they basically matched they were like, whatever they draft you for, we'll give you an NIL. So now I think it's starting to trend towards the college game a little bit more, just because the high school kids have more of an opportunity for pay. But I always go back to, if you couldn't play in college, you couldn't play in pro ball. There's not going to be a kid that gets drafted into pro ball that makes it to the big leagues that wouldn't have got the same amount of money in the draft if he didn't go to college. You're not gonna, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're not gonna, if you get drafted out of high school and you're not going to make it out of college, then you're 20, say you play 5 years, you're 23, and then you're out of baseball and you don't have any education. You're sort of out of college. You don't have a single credit in college, to where maybe on the flip side, you go to college and you get your school paid for and you go for 3 years, 4 years, and maybe you do get drafted for $200,000 less, but you have an education, which is going to be $200,000.
Yeah.
And there's sort of a more, I don't know. I've always thought that college there's no reason. There is a reason. At a certain point, you can't say no to the money. But my best friend, shouldn't say best friend, one of my really good friends, his name's Dylan Cruz. He went to LSU, #1 ranked player in our class. Through and through, high school, the whole thing. He got offered $3 million at a high school to go, I think 12th overall or something. And, he said no. His agent said no. He said no. He was like, I want to go to college. So he goes to LSU. And I've talked to him about it. It's sort of the same deal. Like he thought, like, if I can't play in college, I'm not going to be able to play there anyways. Goes to LSU, wins the Golden Spikes, basically the Heisman Trophy for baseball. Should have won it 2 years in a row. Just won it 1 year. Went second overall. Signed. I think he broke the signing bonus record or got close to it at like $9.5 million or something. And he debuted in the big leagues this year. So he got drafted and debuted in the same year. His first full year, he debuted in that year, to where, like, if you go in high school, you're grinding through the minor leagues for 5-6 years, probably at a minimum, unless you're just, the cream of the crop. There's certain guys that make it quicker than that. But as far as that goes, it's just, and the minor leagues is tough. Like, you don't want to be in the minor leagues for a long time. Like, it's getting better. Like, they provide better housing now, but you're not making the crazy pay to where if you just got drafted out of college, you have that education, and then you're more mature, and you have a quicker path to the big leagues than the high school kid.
But minor leagues it's a grind, right?
Yeah.
Like, you gotta show up every day and grind and work.
Yeah, you got to show up and grind regardless. Yeah. If you're in college, you got to do that. If you're in the minor leagues, you got to do that. And definitely if you're in the big leagues, you got to do that. But it's definitely more of a, you're playing in Des Moines, Iowa, and there's 210 people there compared to if you go to college, you're playing at, name the school, whatever, UNC, and there's 10,000 people, and we don't say that word here. Well, let's say do, but their baseball field's trash. Regardless, Florida State, you got 10,000 people, and it's a good environment, and there's more of a team. In college, you get the more team oriented aspect, where in pro ball, especially at the younger ages, it's a lot of individual. Like, everybody just wants to do well for themselves. It's the nature of the beast.
No, for
everyone's
sure.
playing for themselves.
Yeah.
But in college, you really get a true team aspect, and you don't really get that in pro ball until you get to the big leagues.
Yeah.
They can try to make it team oriented, but it's not.
I've sensed from you that college was not just a means to an end. Like, that experience of college was it was an end in and of itself. Even if pro ball didn't come, like, that experience to you was just valuable. Yeah.
You learn, how to make relationships, how to trust people, like a lot of trust between, and we did a lot of, team building activities as far as, we had to, whether it's conditioning, strength training, doing some really hard stuff, but you learn sort of who to lean on, because if not, you get punished for it. And then, even like playing paintball, like just random activities to where team building activities to where you're really trying to get to know your teammates. That way, you can count on them whenever you need something in a game or even off the field. You need a ride from somebody or whatever it may be. You have that connection or relationship to that lasts longer than just your playing days. Which I know I'm pretty recently out of college, but my 4 or 5 best friends from college, they're still, they were here a couple of weeks ago to watch a Tennessee game and just play golf, like stuff like that, where in pro ball, you play with a guy for 6 months and you might never see him again. Yeah. So it's sort of,
the relationships are more transactional.
Yeah.
That pro level.
And it's just when you try to form a team and you're together and you're going through all this stuff for multiple years, you're naturally going to bond closer to where in pro ball, there's not a, like pro ball is awesome, but it's just different. It's more individualized. You're only going through levels with a certain amount of guys, maybe 2 or 3 guys that you get drafted with that you're sort of working with. Whereas in college, there's 40 of you and you're all together the whole time, going to study hall together, going to class together, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah. I think there's a tendency of fans to look at pro players and even college players as almost like robots. Like, they're not really human. But what I hear you saying is, like, the human part of where you're playing and the relationships and the teamwork and the trust, like, that's important to a guy's development and career.
Well, from my aspect, like, you're not going to play to the best of your ability or as hard as you want to play if you're not playing for something. You can play for yourself as much as you want, but if you're playing for, the guy beside you or the coach that took a chance on you and, has helped develop you, and you see him in the dugout or him, coaching and the fan, like if you see all that, you got more to play for. You know, it's sort of like, you know, if your family's in the stands, you're going to play just a tick bit harder or whatever it is, to where if you're just playing by yourself and you feel bad about yourself and it's like, oh, whatever, I'll just play better tomorrow. But like if you feel invested in a group or in a team, whatever aspect that is, if you're invested in the people around you and beside you, you're going to get the best and most out of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. College has changed since you graduated, like since you started, right? Like when you went to Virginia Tech, you intended to stay at Virginia Tech for 4 years.
Yeah.
Is that the case for kids coming into college now, or has NIL and transfer portals change? Is it changing the magic of that?
From the baseball side of it, I don't think the transfer portal is a bad thing. I think kids' perception of how good they are and where they fit is a bad thing. Because certain kids and parents, they go to a school, whatever school you want to call it. They go to Virginia Tech, and there's two players. There's the one that doesn't play his freshman year, that thinks it's the end of the world. He was the best in high school. He should play, and you know, he's getting developed, but he doesn't think he's getting developed, and I'm going to leave because I'm not playing. So there's that avenue. And then there's actually three. Then there's the really talented player that plays his freshman year, thinks he's, you know, the best thing ever, has one good year, and then transfers to the best school. He transfers to whatever, LSU.
Yeah.
And then he gets there and he doesn't play a lot. And it was because he had one really good year. And then there's the kid, sort of like, well, I mean, I played my freshman year, but there's kids that show up. They were raised the right way. They know they got to work. They're honest with the coaches. They ask them what they can improve on, what they can work on. And, you know, they grind it out. And if it takes a year before they start playing, it takes a year. If it takes 2 years, it takes 2 years. But Tennessee had a kid who went in the first round. Christian Moore, I think was his name. Didn't play his freshman year. Played a little bit his sophomore year. Waited his turn. Killed it his junior year. He developed, and he went, I think, 9th overall last year. So, like, there's kids, to me, are just getting to a point where they're afraid to accept challenges. As far as, I mean, there's definitely certain fits that are better than others, but as far as the whole portal stuff goes and transferring, I mean, you see it even in high school. People are just afraid of competition and working and afraid that they're not going to, you know, win the job without some hard work. And they just sort of want stuff handed to them. I mean, that's my take on it. But
yeah, I think it's a really valuable perspective. And it's kind of like when you look at the path that led to you becoming a pro player, like, I think, you know, it's easy to look at like the technical part of it. Like your dad was a good coach and you had that, but I think people undervalue the intangible stuff. Like, how does a kid learn how to overcome adversity? How do they become a good teammate? Because you just gave a couple of examples. It's those intangible skills that led someone to pro. It wasn't their natural talent.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes from like just having the leader that you, whenever you're a kid or you're a player, the people that are ahead of you, the leaders, the people that are surrounding you, holding each other accountable to where, you know, if we're at Virginia Tech and somebody shows up late to a meeting one time, that kid sits on home plate and we run for whatever, 2 hours, the whole practice, while he's just sitting on home plate. Just stuff like that to where you don't want to be the guy that causes your team or other guys to be let down. And the more that you can get team oriented and realize that this game, it's not golf, it's not tennis, like it's not an individual sport. The more that you can learn that, like, yeah, my role is big, but there's 8 other guys that I'm playing with, and I need those 8 to be just as locked in as I am. So trying to invest in them I think helps as far as the intangible goes. And then, like I said, having a good foundation, understanding, respect, when you're right, be able to accept when you're wrong and learn from that. Some people never think they're wrong. And that's where I like, if I go, like, I'm not scared to go to our head hitting coach and be like, hey, I don't think this is right. And he'll talk to me through it, and we'll go our separate ways if we think it's right or wrong, to where other guys are just so dead set on, this is my way, I'm doing it my way. And they're not open to learning new things. And, sometimes I'll be like, you know what, like, I think you're right. And just being able to talk to people and sort of understand where they're coming from, and not just being so dead set on, I'm doing this my way or it's the highway,
Yeah, that transfer portal mentality that you were talking about, like the unhealthy kind. It's more, you see that more and more in college now, but you're seeing it more in youth sports, right? Yep. Like kids just using a team as a means to a better team. And I see this all the time with families now. And it's like the only purpose of being on this team is to get me to a better team. Mm-hmm. And that's very prevalent in baseball, right?
Yep.
But it seems like kids miss out on the most important thing, which is becoming a good teammate.
Yeah.
Like the team, being on that team is just a means to something else.
Yeah. I mean, it blows my mind, like in youth sports, especially when I see, these 12 and 13-year-old baseball kids that parents think they're, when they're 12 years old, they're going to be getting offered scholarships, and what can I do to, and it's so individual on, how can my kid get the money? How can my kid be the best? And yeah, like you can work on it and do all this stuff, but you're not earning a scholarship or playing when you're 12 years old. Like learn how to be a team, learn how to, when I played with the same team from when I was 9 to 16. And those friendships and learning how to be a teammate, learning how to do all this stuff together gives you so many more valuable lessons than, maybe in this one tournament I switched teams and we won one more game. Like it I don't know. It doesn't matter. The 13U gold trophy to the silver trophy is not that, it's not that big of a deal. So where, don't get me wrong, there's a certain caliber of player to where, maybe with the competition when he's 14 or 15, that he does need to go see some more. Like instead of playing in the Tri-Cities and just Knoxville, maybe he does need to be on a bigger team that's not traveling to experience a little more competition. But as far as the moving from you're just average to decent player and trying to be on the best team just so you can win more, and not learning how to compete and try to outwork that team that you're trying to play for, like that doesn't make sense to me. And especially when you're, 13 years old, like the college recruiting process is for a very limited amount of players, and it doesn't start till you're probably 16. They have rules on it now to where you can't even start till you're, I think, 16. So it's like trying to, win the World Series when you're 12 years old is not going to win you the World Series when you're 25 years old. It's it just.
Yeah, I think somebody looked at it like the number of kids that were in the Youth World Series. What is it?
Yeah. USSSA or whatever you want to call it.
They put it on ESPN now.
Yeah. Oh, Little League World Series.
Yeah, the Little League World Series. The number of those kids that make the big leagues is like is tiny.
Yeah.
So it's like this is not a predictor of success.
Yeah.
So if you were giving advice to parents of 12-year-old players, like what advice would you give them?
Just to find a place that either you or your kid can play, because playing time is the most valuable. So find a place where they can play. If it's the best team, it's the best team. If it's not the best team, it's not the best team. But find somewhere you can play, and then some team that you can try to keep the core of the players together. That way they have a group that they can start to trust each other and learn on. Same thing goes back to college. Like I played with these guys for 3 straight years. So I got to build relationships on and off the field, as opposed to, if you're bouncing from team to team every summer, you're never with the same guys. You're never creating relationships. You're just going out there and playing. So find a place to play and try to keep the core together. And then obviously, try to have good coaching that can help you on the technical side, but is more so of a leader of, hey, this is the right way to do things. This is the wrong way. If you do it the wrong way, we're going to address it and talk about it. We're not just going to let you go out there and do whatever you want. And if it's wrong, not address it. So have someone that is holding the players accountable, which for me was nice because especially for a coach's kid, like it's hard from 12 to 15, it was hard for me and my dad to see eye to eye when it came from, when's he dad, when's he coach? And having other dads on the team or coaches on the team that could sort of be that mediator was really big for us. And people that I trusted, I still talk to them today. And then obviously when you mature, when I turned, 16, 17, we could break up the dad and son a little bit better. But when parents are pushing kids so hard and it's so like dad or coach or they, they're acting nice to the kid, and then on the way home, they're, just tormenting the kid for how they did at practice. Like that kid's not going to want to go back and enjoy the game. Like let them enjoy the game, let them learn on their own. And now if they, if they throw their helmet at football practice, then you can address that. Like, hey, quit throwing your helmet. But if it's some sort of technique that they're doing and the coach is telling them one thing and they're trying to work on it, and then in the car, he's just getting bashed for not being able to do it when he's 14 years old, like let him work through it himself and try to figure it out. And then just teach him the right and wrong way to play the sport as far as, don't complain to the refs. Like just let the coaches talk to the refs. Don't throw your helmet, don't throw your stuff. Like just play the game the right way, play hard. And then at the end, kind of reassess and see how the day went.
What you're describing is culture.
Yeah.
It sounds like you had a really special, healthy culture at Virginia Tech.
Yep.
And you had that culture when you were younger. And I think parents often value like how far from home can my team play? Like because a team's playing in California makes that experience better than if they're playing in Knoxville.
Yeah.
But what I hear you saying is the culture of those teams is important. You said it's important in college. Like how much more important is it for an 11-year-old?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I it all goes back to this whole thing. Like the whole message is foundation and like you said, culture of having a group, because it's hard to make a team. I mean, you see it now, like especially with like Coach Cal at Kentucky. Like, I mean, he's at Arkansas now, but it's hard for those guys to have a real culture when they're one and done guys, because it's so hard to have a collective group. Yeah. Be able to switch on, like flip the switch and be a team and have culture in 1 year. Like the more that you surround yourself with people you can trust and people you can hold accountable and have an open conversation with, like, hey, this is wrong, man. Like you need to fix it. Like if the more that you can get that to happen, and culture, whether it's harder, it's obviously harder to do when a kid's 10 years old, but the more that they can grow up in that and have healthy relationships with coaches and parents to where this is right, this is wrong. If it's wrong, you're going to be punished. That way they can start to ingrain whenever they do go out on their own, whenever they do go to college or do go to a different team, that they have these intangibles that they understand, like, hey, this is the right way to do things. This is the wrong way. If I see somebody doing it wrong, I'm going to address it with them and we'll talk through it.
Sounds like those interviews you went through pre-draft, the questions they were asking were getting to that.
Yeah.
Like, do you have that background and healthy support system? A lot of it was very similar to
background, and they're just trying to pry and get to, who really is this person, and how can they try to bring together a team? How can they hold people accountable without being, like, I'm the best, like, do it my way, but be open with, hey, why are you working on that? Are you like talk to me through it, talk to me about it. Like just being able to talk and open up as far as, always trying to learn and try to grow, never settle and think that, you know, you figured it out. Like never think that you've figured anything out. Always try to improve, that whole mantra of, you know, 1% every day, whatever it might be, but just trying to always keep your mind open and learn new things. And if somebody says something and you're like, I don't like that, then that's fine, but just be open to it. Like, don't shut it down as soon as something happens. Like, maybe test it out, try it out, and see what you think.
Yeah. Baseball is such an interesting game because in some ways it's a very individual sport. You're alone up there in the batter's box, right?
Yep.
Like, but then it's also like, I don't know that there's any tighter, more like team-oriented sports than baseball.
Yeah.
Like that's always been interesting to me. Like the skill is so individual, but I don't like, you guys are tight. Like it is a team.
It's very individual. Like when you're in the box, I mean, there's no secret. You're the only one up there. When you're on the mound, you're the only one up there. Defensively, you know, you got everybody. But hitting is a lot more than just the individual. Because, I mean, let's say I'm hitting whatever, second, and I go up to hit, and whatever the result is, I, you know, strike out, ground out, whatever it is. But, you know, I saw like when the pitcher broke his hands, like if he had a little more space, it was a curveball. But if he kept his hands tight, it was a fastball. So I go back in the dugout. If I'm selfish, if I feel bad, I don't say anything if I'm worried about myself. But, you know, if I see something, I go tell the next 3 through 9 hitters, like, hey, like if you can see it, it might be something. Like if his hand's open, it's a curveball. If his hands are tight, it's a fastball. And then they go up there and they have success. So like, yeah, it's individual while they're going up there, but they have something that the previous guy saw or something we saw on video that helps them, which helps the team, which gets the team aspect into it. While it's still individual, it's always a team as far as what you're trying to accomplish. And then same thing, if you're on the bases, if I'm on second and I got the sign or I can see the pitch, like relaying the sign, stuff like that, which is helping the team while I'm still being individual, technically on the base and at home plate.
Wow. Tell me about
that. Stuff goes on too.
Yeah, I bet. It's like Tell me about being in the batter's box. Like, I think some people would describe hitting a baseball as one of the hardest individual skills in sport.
Yeah.
Talk to me about like what's going on in your head.
Yeah, so I mean, dependent upon the pitcher, but if starting pitcher, you know, we get there 4 hours before the game. We got video, tendencies. So you're trying to formulate a plan. So whatever, I'm like, my typical approach is, you know, fastball, middle away, and then just try to adjust off of that. But in your pregame, if the guy, obviously if he's left-handed, you'll set the machine and you'll work sort of more left-hand side. Yeah. Right-hand, you go more right-hand side, and then they got crazy machines now that can sort of adjust arm angle and different things. So you're trying to formulate your plan. And then obviously if you've seen him before, you sort of know how he likes to attack you or whatnot. Let's just say we haven't seen him before. You're attacking your plan, so you go through your, you know, 3 hours for the game, daily routine in the cage, like mechanical stuff, trying to feel your swing, sort of see what you're working on. And then you go take BP on the field. And that's sort of when you start talking to the coaches and then formulating a plan with the other players as far as, hey, like this guy likes to attack lefties with, you know, fastballs up and away and breaking balls down and in. So I try to create like a green zone if I have a home plate and sort of where I want it to start. Like if he's a little run and a slider, I want to start at middle away. That way the fastball is sort of on the outside corner, but the slider stays in the zone. To where if he throws more sliders, maybe I'll push it further away. And I'm just trying to eliminate his pitch. So like, and then stick to what I do well. If I don't hit the slider well, I'm not going to look for it. And if he throws it 3 times, like tip your cap, hitting's hard. But trying to formulate a plan. And then as far as when you get in the box, be confident. Got to be confident, breathe, and realize that the at-bat's never over. So if you get yourself in a hole or you take a bad swing, like all it takes is one, and just try to, you know, trust that you've done this your whole life and be confident. And if it doesn't go your way, you got 3 more that game. And if not, you got 4 more the next day, and it's a long season. So there was some saying that Christian Yelich said, I can't remember what it was, but it was like, it takes a really long time to have a good year, and it takes an even longer time to have a really bad year. So like learning to not try to ebb and flow, and as much as you can try to stay that course. And it's hard. I mean, you're hitting a round ball with a round bat at 100 miles an hour, and they throw 5 different pitches. Like it's not easy by any means. And if you do everything perfect, like if I execute my plan, if I take a perfect swing, if I hit it perfect, I can still hit it right at somebody and get out. So and then on the same side, the pitcher can do everything perfect. He can shatter my bat in 40 pieces and it can fall over someone's head for a hit. So it's all about not being results oriented, which all comes back to sort of what we were talking about earlier as far as the travel kid and any sport these days. Everyone's so like, I'm going to work on this, and if it doesn't instantly work, I'm done. And they don't want to, which I think that sort of baseball has taught me that, as far as just try your best not to get results oriented, especially instant results. Like you want to see results, but they don't have to be just instant. Like as long as it's just that much, like over time, just slowly getting better at everything. And be okay with, maybe taking a step back. Like if you have to make a change, you might go back a little bit, but understand that taking that step back is going to get you in a better place in the end run, which baseball's taught me a lot about that, because hitting it's very hard. Yeah.
Well, success is failing only 70% of the time.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It's unique that way. And it's like what I hear you saying is when you go into that batter's box, it's an intellectual exercise. Like it's strategic on both sides.
Cat and mouse the whole time.
You can't be reactive, right? Like you have to get good at anticipating what's going to happen in order to hit a 100-mile-an-hour ball.
Yeah. It definitely is reactive, but it's a lot of anticipation too. So like, I'm looking, especially let's say a guy is throwing 100, which they don't all throw 100, but even 95.
Yeah.
Like if I'm looking for a fastball middle away, like, I'm loading up, and like when he lets go and I see the first 10 feet, I think they did a sports science on it. It's like I can't remember if it's 0.3 or 0.03 between swing or no swing. But if it starts in my green zone that I'm looking for, I'm going to it. And then if it is a breaking ball or if it is something, I'm trying to just be athletic and react to whatever the ball is doing. But I'm telling myself the whole time, like, okay, I'm looking here, fastball, like, yes. And then there's that split second where it's like, yes or no. So you're always in go mode, like anticipating you're going to get what you want, never being in between of like, oh, this might be a fastball, this might be a slider. That's when your thoughts sort of get array, and you even if you get your pitch, you're in between, so you're late, you're early, and that split second time is a foul ball compared to a double in the gap of being committed to your approach and being yes, no mindset, as opposed to yes, no, yes mindset.
You have to be so decisive, right? There's no time for indecision. There's no time for self-doubt.
Yeah.
And it's like, to be successful in that such short, there's probably no shorter window than hitting a baseball.
Yeah.
Like your time frame is so short. Being successful in that, it seems like it goes back to the team.
Yeah.
Right? Like your self-confidence is higher when you know you've got a tribe behind you that believes in you.
Yeah. And as far as the team aspect goes, like if I got, a runner on second and nobody out, my only job is to get him to third. So I'm not, then you go up there thinking, okay, if you have an individual mindset, it's the whole like, okay, like I'm not doing well, I need to work on this, I need to work on that. But if you can flip it to how can I help my team even when I'm struggling, no matter how bad my swing feels or what it feels like all I have to do is get this guy to third. All I have to do is hit a ground ball to the left of the shortstop or right of the shortstop from home plate. And like that's, if you can switch your mindset from, oh, I'm struggling, oh, I'm doing this, or just like, hey, just get a pitch that I can do a job and help my team, the game will start to shift and not be as mentally challenged, as hard, because you're just you take your thoughts from 20 different, I feel bad. I haven't been playing good. Whatever all these bad thoughts are, and you can flip it to, how can I help my team by just getting this guy over? All right, let's just get the guy over, and then your at-bat's over with. So the thoughts that go on in your head are I would say very important when it comes to baseball. I mean, I would think all other sports are the same way, but when it comes to hitting, the less thoughts you can have, the better results you're going to have.
You just have to learn. You just have to learn that over time, right? Yeah. Like how to filter out all the noise and focus on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you do it enough, if you're blessed to play long enough, you'll eventually learn that the more I think, the worse I do. Like you might think something one at bat and run into one and get lucky, but the more reps that you get of doing it the wrong way, you're going to learn that that doesn't work. Yeah. So let's try something different. And that goes back to talking to people, being open-minded with like, hey, what do you think when you're up there? Or, this is what I think. Should I alter it? Like, am I doing too much? Am I doing too little? Yeah. And it all sort of goes back to, people I've talked to, it's always like the less I can think, the better I can do. Like less is more. So just trying to do that. Yeah.
Wow. Man, it's also interesting. So you're going to Arkansas is up next.
Arkansas was last year. Hopefully I'll be in Omaha, which is AAA, but I would say either one of those two. Yeah.
Okay. So this year you could make the jump to AAA.
Yeah.
And what is it like in terms of self-awareness? Like what are you going into this season now thinking this is what I want to get. This is what I want to get better at. This is what I need for the next jump.
I think for me, it all comes back to just being consistent. I think the one thing with me that sort of gets off throughout the span of 160 games, which it's normal, it's natural, is some things just get a little out of consistency, and just trying to hammer my routine, my daily routine of, what I'm doing in the cage every single day, and just trying to almost become a robot in the cage as far as everything I'm doing. Keep it consistent. And the time to work on stuff is right now in the off season. So right now I'm working on the stuff last year that I thought I needed to improve on a little bit. But once, whatever it is, April 3rd, I don't know when the first game is, but whenever spring training starts, like this is my swing for the year, get it consistent and learn how to battle with it. And when the games start, just go compete, no swing thoughts. And unless something bizarre is off and we really need to address it, that's your swing, go compete and just try to have fun. And that's what I learned after my first full season. I was trying to tinker with stuff during the season and just had a really bad year. And last year that's what I told like our front office was like, I'm just going to try to be consistent. Whatever swing I got that day is what I'm going to try to compete with. And I had a lot better year. I still think I could have been a lot better, but just solely trying to be consistent with, hey, this is the swing I got today. Like, that's what I'm going with.
Sticking with it.
Yeah. And not thinking, and even if it might look ugly or whatever, I don't like it visually, but whatever it is that allows me to just solely go up there and think, okay, this is my approach. I'm going to execute it and try to do a job for the team, as opposed to being in the box like, ooh, is my back leg too heavy? Like, are my hands too high or my hands too low? Like, get rid of those thoughts and just be okay with that swing you got that day and go compete. And the more that you play, everybody's talented. It goes back to, there's certain things in a swing that need to be there, but when you're at this level, the majority of people get there. Yeah. And it's all, when you get there, it's all what's your mindset and are you okay with being able to compete and understanding that you're not perfect and it's never going to be perfect. Yeah. So just trying to understand that. And that's my goal for the rest of my whatever playing career is just be consistent, try to get the most out of my body, but more my brain. Like just try to get the most out of being strong up here as opposed to the swing.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. like it's super. Everything you talked about is super interesting. I wish we had time to talk about your FIFA game. Like
I actually worked a kid for $50 on the bus this year. That said he played FIFA, and I was like, I'll play, but I haven't played in like 7 years, and I think I skunked him like 6-0 or something. I won't name drop or anything, but he knows who he is.
People think of you as a baseball player. They do not understand. Like you're a real talent. It's not that you're good at FIFA. You are good at scoring goals at FIFA. Like it's unbelievable. Like your shooting percentage in FIFA is like in the 90 percentile.
Yeah,
like
it's pretty legit.
You
My
never
defense
missed.
Isn't very good, but
like I would do everything right defensively, and you would shoot from midfield, and it would always go in. It's like
I had the advantage of not knowing any of the tactics, so you never knew what was coming at you.
Yeah. Man, you should. I knew when I saw that, I knew you were going to be a pro in something. At that time, I thought it might be esports. maybe you missed your real calling, but. You're doing pretty well at baseball too.
Thanks.
And man, I wish you the very best.
Yeah, thank you.
It's been so much fun kind of seeing your journey, and I know you're going to do great because of all the things we talked to today, and we look forward to seeing it, and Bristol is very, very proud of you.
Thank you.
All right, man.